Mission X accomplished in Marrakesh as the Super Falcons clinched their 10th WAFCON title after a trailing 3-2 comeback victory against the Atlas Lioness in Morocco. We'll be talking about all of this on today's edition on Sports Pizza, your number one stop for everything sports entertainment. And I'm sure the important questions you guys are having is where is Edwin Oyeboliseh? He's not around. He has fallen under the weather, but I'm sure by next week he will be joining us. My name is Olad Bankole. I'm not a stranger to you guys. I've been on the opposite side of the chair, but today I'm taking the mantle of the show. And alongside me is a blast from the past. I'm a friend of the show, Abi David. I'll be introducing David after we come back from this very short break. Welcome back to the show, and like I said before we went on that break, we'll be talking about the Super Falcons, and also we'll be traveling across the world to Europe, where the Three Lionesses took on Spain in the final of the Women Euros. We'll be taking a look at that game. We'll be talking about Sarina Wigman and her accomplishment so far as the manager in England. Also, we'll be taking a short trip to the past during our stint in charge of the Netherlands national team. But like I said, I have Abi David with me. David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Bankole, pleasure to be here. It's a cameo for me. I mean,
like I said before we went on that break, it's a blast from the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm standing in for Edwin today.
How have you been? You looked up.
I'm good. You talked about the weather. Thankfully, I almost fell under the weather too.
You almost fell under the weather?
I survived.
But for Edwin, it was induced by me, because a lot of people don't know this. After we are done with the show, we go out and we play video games. So last week, I ensured I taught him a proper lesson, a proper wallocking, and he's suffering from the. He's still trying to recuperate from all of that. But let's go straight into what we saw over the weekend. Yeah. Before we take a holistic look at the tournament itself for the Super Falcons, let's talk about the game. There's this cliche saying in football about the game being a game of two different halves, and it was quite on show on that day. Yeah. What would you say was the difference between the first half for the Super Falcons and the second half?
I think for me, the first half was more a reaction to what Morocco did. Morocco gave us a game that we were not expecting. In the first half, their pressing was relentless, and also their wingers, Chebak and Benzani. She was, I saw Ashley Plumtree struggle more than I've ever seen in this tournament, and she struggled. But second half, I don't know what the coach tweaked, because personnel it didn't change, but mentality they changed, and they got more on the ball. Our players who were able to get on the ball in the first half, they struggled to even string passes together, but in the second half, they were able to put moves together and actually exert that physical demand. It showed, because the Moroccans could not deal with it when we now raised our levels.
But I also felt like perhaps the home crowd played a part in what we saw in the first half. It felt like our girls were dazed a little bit, because I don't know if you agree with me, the Moroccans were not superb in the first half. They were not playing extraordinarily. They got 2 goals, yes, but it felt like if we had just increased our intensity, increased our desire a little bit, it would be very comfortable to come back in that game.
Yeah, I think I want to agree with you, because that's what happened in the second half. They actually came to the party in the second half, and we saw them. The Moroccans could not deal. At some point, I was wondering if the Moroccans were tired, because they couldn't cope with the physicality, the intensity, and even just our general quality on the ball. They got more on the ball, and she was central to everything. Okoronko, she showed her dominance. The fact that the coach started without a striker in that game, Esther Okoronko was makeshift, but she actually showed herself. She was able to hold the ball more and bring others into play. So I think I agree with you that the Moroccans were not spectacular. We played into their hands in the first half. The 2 goals were very silly errors, and then they capitalized on it. In the second half, when we raised our game, they couldn't deal with it.
Is Esther Okoronko the head to Azizat Oshoala for Nigeria? I
don't think so. I think she offers more around other areas of the pitch. So just shoehorning her up front, I think might negate a lot of what she can offer other areas of the field.
So if we're looking for a bona fide superstar to take on the mantle if Oshoala leaves us, do we have any in this current crop of Super Falcons?
I think Rasheedat Ajibade
is basically also like a veteran in this team. She's not part of the young guns like Deborah Abiodun, the Esther Okoronko or the Michelle Alozie. I think we have failed, in developing, or maybe not developing, because I don't think we have a problem in our youth teams. I think it's the transition to the senior team that we have failed to work on. Because you look at the likes of Esther, Azizat Oshoala, Desire Paranozie, they went to the Under-20 World Cup, lost the final to Germany, and that same year they played in the AFCON, in which they went on to win. But do you think that this whole Mission X, the hype around the victory, do you think we might be over-celebrating it? And the reason why I said this, because I've said it on the show before too, that we had a 25-year head start against every other team in Africa. We were the first country to start a female league.
Yeah.
How are we over-celebrating winning a 10th AFCON title when our focus should be competing with the likes of England and Spain?
I think so. I think absolutely. I think our levels right now should be what we do when we get to the highest stages, the World Cup. I think we have not done it. The Olympics as well. We have not done as much as we should do. I mean, look at our record. Round of 16, the best we have ever. Quarter-final, when it was still a 16-team tournament, so we were straight. So we've not actually gone beyond the second round of the World Cup. In the Olympics as well, we've not done as much. So our dominance on the African continent, even though when you look at the last week competition, the gap has been closer. In this competition, other than Zambia, who were one of the teams that were favourite, that we actually dismantled. South Africa was a close game. The Moroccans were also a close game. So we have not. Our dominance has closed on the African continent, but on the world still we need to. So
what would you say is the biggest factor to our dominance being close? Is it we declining or we stop progressing? Which one was a bigger factor? The other teams caught up to us because we stopped progressing, or the other teams caught up to us because we declined?
I think it's a bit of both, but I think I will lean more towards we declining and other teams are catching up. So if you look at what Morocco have invested, the last World Cup is a clear example of how we have progressed as a continent. 3 of the 4 teams that went to the World Cup qualified to the second round, the first time in history that has ever happened for Africa. So it tells you that this team, South Africa, Equatorial Guinea, the likes of Zambia, have actually progressed. And Nigeria has not actually made any leaps because the gap between Nigeria and the rest of Africa is not much. The gap between Nigeria and the rest of the world is widening.
All right, before we go into the other teams we saw at the competition, should the CAF Women's Player of the Year come from Nigeria? Given the fact that it's a WAFCON year and we've gone on to win, should CAF give the player of the year to a player from Nigeria? I
think so. I think we have outstanding candidates that can be. I think for me, Rashida Adebade, she was good. I think for me, Esther Okoronkwo was also good. Actually, Plumtree was good. For, even look at other nations, who was the standout player for South Africa? I don't think they had a major standout.
But you also look at Nigeria, the likes of Ashik Plumtree, the likes of Rashida Adebade, the likes of Esther Okoronkwo. Yeah. What was their exploit in their club side? I think there has to be a balance between it. But I agree that we should have the winner from Nigeria. But if there's anybody who has done well both for club and country, I think it's the goalkeeper. And it might be an unpopular opinion, but I think Chiamaka Nnadozie
she has a good shot.
Probably the best goalkeeper in Africa, unarguably, and top 5 in the world. Yeah,
I think so. I think for me, when you look at the other contenders from other countries, Barbara Banda for Zambia, she's good in her club, but for Zambia, she didn't really turn up. They didn't go as far as we expected to go. South Africa as well don't have a major standard. Chebak of Morocco, good player, but at club level, she's also not at the highest level. So I think for me, Nnadozie, really, I think it's time for a goalkeeper to actually have it, and she's the most outstanding candidate right now.
So before we go on to Europe, what was your assessment of the other countries in this competition? The Moroccos, the South Africas, the Ghanas, the North Africans generally. Yeah. What was your assessment? Where do you think improvement should be made? Where do you think, what impressed you the most also in this competition from other countries that are not Nigeria?
I think for me, Zambia, they need to move past Kudinanji and Barbara Banda dependence. The rest of the team needs to be, look at them, take out those 2 players, the rest of the team is average. For, Morocco, they have a good core, they have a good technical players, Chebak, I talked about Benzani. They have players who can actually, and they have a coach like Ogevilda who is helping them, harness the talent. They are back-to-back finals now for them. It's not a fluke. At the World Cup, their first ever edition of the World Cup, they got to the second round. So I think for me, they are growing. South Africa as well, they always keep producing talent. Because of most of their players are based on the continent, based in their league. They are able to get them together and they play as a team. So I think for me, but I like the rise of Senegal in this tournament. I think they were very good and they played some good football. Also, Botswana making their debut at this tournament. It was good for them as well. But the rest of the continent are rising to the party.
From one Lioness losing the final, let's go to another set of Lionesses who went on to win the Euros over the weekend. We saw England in a penalty shootout defeat Spain. And before we go into the game exactly, I don't know if you noticed, but I think this tournament is the tournament where I've seen the worst set of penalties. Yeah. And Joey Barton said it. He got a lot of sticks because of who Joey Barton is. Yeah. But I think I agree with him. The level of or the quality of penalties we saw was an eyesore generally. Even from the winning teams, England against Sweden, you saw how bad it was. Even from Spain, I didn't think I expected that poor amount, of consecutive penalties from Spaniards.
Yeah, I think so. I think Mariona Caldente, somebody who I think one of the most technical players in women's football, she missed against Switzerland in open play. She missed in the shootout. Got to the final again, missed again. So it tells you that something is actually wrong with Chloe Kelly, who has been England's savior in penalty shootouts. At the World Cup she was good. Their last Euro win, she was also good in penalty. She missed one. Luckily for her, she got the winner in the final. And she said she doesn't miss twice in a row, which is good for her. But I think the level generally, Leah Williamson, somebody who is experienced at this level, missed the penalty. So I think generally the quality has been very poor.
Before we talk about England, let's address Spain. They've been probably the best team in the world in female football for a while now. But should they be worried? Olympics final, they lost. They lost. Barcelona lost the Champions League to Arsenal. Now they are losing the Euros. Is this the end of a dominance, or is this just a blip in their stronghold in women's football?
I think a dominance is coming to an end. When you look at the key actors of that team, Putellas is back-to-back, Ballon d'Or winner. She's a shadow of herself right now, and I think at time at the national team is probably phasing out with this competition. In attack, they are really very, very weak. Esther Gonzalez, who had a good season.
I'm a big fan of, by the way.
Yeah, she's good. She's good, but I think a record at the national team is quite good. But in international tournaments, she's really not lived up to the expectation for me. And I think Salma Paralluelu, the generation that is coming next are not probably able to live up to the expectation that's required. I think, for me, they had a generation that really dominated, and I think that era has now passed.
The problem I'm seeing with Spain is, are they relying too much on Barcelona? Because the way I like to put it is the Barcelonification of Spanish football. Is this a problem? Do we have to see other teams, putting effort in bringing out talent, in dishing out talents to the national team? Or do you think, like we've seen in male football, the La Masia is sufficient enough to still have a stronghold in the national team?
I think that might be a problem. It's good that you raised it, because in that final, at a point, there were 9 Barcelona players in the starting 11 on the pitch at that period in time. Compared to what England have been spread across, the WSL teams. But for Spain, apart from Olga Carmona, who is Real Madrid, and Mary Bataille, who is also from Real Madrid, the rest of the team is Barcelona. So I think for me, it might be a problem in the future.
That was all for the first part of the show. We're going to break. When we come back, we'll be taking you straight into the big, beautiful world of transfers. Luis Diaz is on his way to Germany. Welcome back to the show. We're still Sports Pizza. My name is Oladeju Bankole, and I still have Abe David for company. David, it was a weekend of transfers, a weekend of seismic movements in the transfer world, especially in England. And the latest is Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich. A reported fee of 75 million euros has been agreed between the Bavarians and Liverpool for the Colombian international. And it begs the question, for 75 million euros and all of the options that were available in this market, is this the best Bayern can do? Absolutely not.
I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, and I was like, this is very un-Bayern-like signing. I mean, the Bayern we grew up knowing and actually watching would not go for a 28-year-old who is not, I mean, it's not a guarantee for goals and even numbers generally. It's just somebody who gives you a lot of industry and hard work. But this is not what Bayern would have. For that kind of money, Rodrigo is available on the market. I mean, there are wingers who are available on the market. To now spend that amount on Luis Diaz, it doesn't make sense to me. Liverpool are the biggest beneficiaries of this right now.
So is because it's easy to blame the hierarchy at Bayern. It's easy to blame how they've conducted themselves, not just in this transfer window, but subsequent transfer windows before this one. But I also think we can make a case for them. We can clamor about, there are a lot of options, but let's take a look at the options. Nico Williams extended his contract at Athletic Bilbao. Rodrigo is undecided about if he wants to leave Real Madrid. Luis Diaz is still the most attainable option, or which other option would you say was still as attainable as Luis Diaz? Because except if you want to go for a Marcus Rashford, which is still a downgrade for a certain Luis Diaz. And I think we also have to give him Diaz credit. You look at what he has done in that Liverpool team. Yeah. He is significantly better on the left side than Cody Gakpo, than a lot of left wingers. Even though the market has been saturated a bit, the quality has dropped. But I think, aside from the price, they are getting an upgrade on Coleman, on Serge Gnabry. Jamal Musiala is injured. Thomas Muller is retired. So it is a quality body, joining the Bavarian. But the key question, as much as I've praised Luis Diaz and all, I still think there are like 6 teams who are above Bayern Munich in terms of winning the UEFA Champions League. You have the Man Cities of this world, the Arsenals of this world, the Barcelonas of this world, the Real Madrids of this world, the PSGs of this world, and the Liverpool. I don't think they're above any of these 6 teams. The signing of Luis Diaz, has it propelled them, above any of these teams?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, that position they needed a long-term option for that position. Fine, some people will say they needed something for the here and now, but I think they're also planning long-term because they have Kingsley Coman, they have Serge Gnabry. Those are guys who are getting to the tail end of the 30s. So I think for me, they needed to do something a bit different. I think for the price and also for what they are getting, I don't think it's the major upgrade that they think it is.
What would you consider a successful transfer window for Bayern?
For Bayern Munich, I think in that wing option, they've gotten Luis Diaz. I think it's good. In attack, they still have Harry Kane. In the number 10, the Florian Wirtz, deal that didn't happen, I think it's still a major blow for them. I think they needed somebody, which is why they went for Wirtz, and they've not addressed it. So I think until they get somebody in that position, I think they will still be lacking a bit in that side of the team.
I look at Bayern and I think if they've gotten Luis Diaz, if they're getting a Nick Watamadi, I think, and he left back to battle it out with Alphonso Davies. I think it would a quality left back, which is also, like I said, is like looking for a needle in a haystack. But if they can get all of these 3, I think aside from the Bundesliga, which I think is easy pickings, I think in the Champions League they can also challenge for. But from Luis Diaz, let's go to Alexander Isak and David. I question the timing of Isak's admittance to leaving Newcastle. Is this so? When something like this happens, who would you blame more? The club, the player's representative, or the player himself?
I think I would blame the player's representative. They are putting ideas in his head. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, when the season was about to end last year, my mind was Newcastle don't make the Champions League, Isak will be available in the middle. But the moment they made the Champions League, I mean, I had already written it off that it was not going to be a deal it was settled there. He has gotten in Champions League football that he needed, so I think he was going to stay there. But to now come at this point, make Liverpool actually go for Ekitike as their second option, then you now make the decision that you now want to leave. I think it just makes the whole thing very messy. It puts Newcastle in a very difficult situation because from the beginning of the summer, they already said Isak is not for sale, but his price is 150 million. So it just messes up the whole thing at this point in time. And
it's good you mentioned Liverpool because they're the favourites to land his signature. Where does it fit in? Especially when you consider the likes of Mo Salah, you consider Hugo Ekitike. Yes, they've sold Luis Diaz, but still a certain Cody Gakpo, Florian Wirtz, who operates from the left and through the middle. Where exactly does it fit in? Especially if you invest 150 million euros on a striker who might probably not come into play, striking position.
I think for me, a lot of Liverpool fans made the statement that the fact that they lost, Diogo Jota of blessed memory, so they needed somebody to. But Isak is not going to do the role that Jota was doing. Jota was an impact player off the bench and he was making it. Isak for that price is not going to be an impact player. They still have the small matter of Darwin Núñez who needs to be moved on. So they're just compounding this. Ekitike is not coming for that price to also be a backup. So they just model the whole thing. Fine, a lot of those players, the funny thing is a lot of them like drifting out to the left and then coming in. So they are now overfilling that position. There's going to be a lot of, there's Cody Gakpo there, there's Ekitike, there's also Isak, a lot of problems. So Salah himself is now looking like he's going to be an island on one side, and on the left they're going to have a lot of issues to deal with.
Isak signing, is it a statement of phasing out Salah?
I think so. I think a lot of dependence on Salah. We saw what happened when Salah tailed up at the second half of the season. They really struggled. So I think they are making a statement that Salah is here for the here and now, but for the future we're actually building for him.
So finally on the transfer window and Liverpool and the Premier League, it has seemed like a striker's transfer window. Gyökeres to Arsenal, Isak has been reported to Liverpool, Hugo Ekitike to Liverpool, João Pedro to Chelsea. At the end of the season, I want you to travel to next year, at the end of the season, who will be the top 3 highest goal scorers in order in the English Premier League?
I think Erling Haaland is still going to be in and amongst the goals. I think Victor Gyökeres is going to be among the goals. Fine, you say it's Arsenal bias, but I think for me, just the hunger that he has shown. I
didn't say anything. You said it.
I read it from. I read it from you. But I think for me, just the hunger that he's shown, the fact that he's somebody that Arsenal, there's a hole that Arsenal need to fill, and he has filled that hole. Definitely is going to get in and among the goals that Arsenal will create. So I think for me, Haaland, Victor Gyökeres, Isak, somebody who is experienced in the league, he did 21 goals last season. It looks like this is going to fire again. So I think for me, those 3 guys, I'm not sure what Salah is going to do this season. Hopefully, he doesn't go down the path of sign big contract and then go off the ball. Before we go on a break,
quick one. We've started a new segment called the Start, Bench and Drop. And today's edition is going to be about the Barclays Premier League men. And the Barclays Premier League men are men who went under the radar back in the days in the English Premier League. Big strikers who were reliable for middle table teams, but couldn't make that leap to the big teams. And today we'll be looking at Darren Bent, Jermaine Defoe, and Yakubu Aiyegbeni. Start, bench, and drop.
Wow. If I was a manager, I would be in a difficult situation.
If you are a red nap, you'll be licking your lips.
I mean, it's a difficult choice. But I think for me, I'm going to be starting Jermaine Defoe. The sheer number of goals he scored, he was irregular. And also for England, he was one of the backups that they had to, the regular established at that point in time. It was a regular goal scorer. He scored goals everywhere he went. So for me, I was starting. On the bench, I'll put Yakubu Aiyegbeni. Nigerian fans don't like to hear that name, but I think for what he did in the Premier League, 95 goals in the Premier League for an African, 5 goals short of 100. When you look at the number of players who have hit the 100, to think Yakubu was that close, fantastic for him. And then I'll be selling, unfortunately, Darren Bent. I think his goals were not just, the numbers were not just consistent. There were seasons he would do 6 goals, do 5 goals, league goals. I think for me, it was all over the place at some point in time.
All right, then we go on a break. When we come back, it's going to be time for the Tipsters Corner. But stay with us as we will be playing you our video of the week. It's still Sport Pizza, and the video that was shown on your screens was the Super Falcons celebrating their trophy victory at Marrakesh. The 10th title, I mean, David, as much as we have been a bit negative about it on the show today, but I also think winning 10 titles, 10 continental titles is something to be proud of.
I mean, the Super Falcons remind us the dominance that Nigeria as a nation should have on the African continent in terms of football. The men promised, let's do it again, they did not do it. But the women promised respect and they deliver. So that's a big difference between the two.
All right, then let's quickly go to our Tipsters Corner where we have 3 games for you today. And we'll be starting off in Romania, where it's a derby for the 2 biggest teams, or 2 of the biggest teams in Romania. You have Dynamo Bucharesti against FC Star Bucharesti. What do you make of this game?
I mean, so derby, Star Bucharesti, if you are of the OG times, you remember how good they are.
If you are from back in the days, where you see them in the Champions League and the Europa.
So I think a derby is always very tricky, but I think for me, Star Bucharesti have enough to at least not lose this game. So they will want to win the title this season again. It's been a while they've actually won the Romanian League.
But don't you think there is a certain home advantage at play in the Romanian League? It is something I've also noticed. The Romanian League tend to have the home teams at least picking points.
Yeah, that's why I'm going for at least an X2 for Star Bucharest. I don't think they will lose.
Just like Romania, these are 2 big clubs in Belgium in recent years. Genk taking on Royal Antwerp. David?
Yeah. I think for me, goals will always be sure delivery in the Belgian league. They always deliver goals. I think both teams to score in this one looks very. These are 2 teams who have fancy their chances of winning the title this season. So both teams to score. I mean, our Nigerian brother Aruku Dare is still with Genk for now. So I think it's a very good guarantee for a goal. If you want to go for the goal scorers market, you want to be sure to score. But for the results market, I think anybody win looks like a good one. Over 1.5 as well looks like a good one.
All right, thank you very much, David, for coming. And I'm sure you guys will be looking forward to having Edwin back with you next week. I would also be on the other side of the chair, giving you all of the best of action from the big, beautiful world of sports. My name is Oladude Bankole. David, thank you for coming.
Yeah, fantastic coming again. Good to be back.
My name is Oladude Bankole. Like I mentioned, have yourself a lovely, lovely week.